What is going on, Busy Bariatrics, and welcome to another episode of the Busy Bariatric Podcast. I'm Rob DeMedio, your host, and if you listened to the last episode, we talked all about the importance of nutrition and how nutrition really did guide a lot of my initial success, as well as how I started to lose over 50 pounds right off the bat, even prior to bariatric surgery. In today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about my activity journey and the importance of staying active, as well as how we kind of coach it in Busy Bariatrics, while I sprinkle in like my own little ways of how do I stay active, what do I look like now, what did it look like then, and where we go from there. So to start, when we talk about weight loss and bariatric surgery, movement's really going to be critical to success. And for a lot more of the reasons than what most people think, I think the biggest misnomer that we see is people tend to think or equate that really tough workouts or intense workouts will burn more calories, and in return, that is what's going to fuel your fitness. And although if you burn more calories by the laws of thermodynamics, you should in fact create a greater deficit, in reality, even the hardest, most grueling workout that you do can be completely erased by a handful of Reese cups or a little bit of a caloric surplus. So a really important lesson as we go through all this is this idea that you really can't out-train a bad fork. And what that means for most people is that if you are looking at activity as a way to lose weight after weight loss surgery, yes, it does help. But your diet and your nutrition is really going to play the bigger role of that. So as we go through all that, kind of keep that as your scope, your lens, kind of the idea of what we're looking at. So then if that's the case, why do so many bariatric surgeons and people in the bariatric community say that physical activity is important? Now this is where I got to check my notes because I wanted to read this out and then I'll get back to it. And it comes down to physical activity increases the amount of energy your body uses at rest, and we call that a resting metabolic rate. Over time, consistent activity helps preserve muscle mass, which is crucial for maintaining a healthy metabolism. What does that mean in my own words? Well, really simple is your body needs X amount of calories just to operate. And how we do it in Busy Bariatrics is we use a basal metabolic rate, or a TDE, total daily energy expenditure calculator. And what we do is we put in kind of like the standard numbers in that. So that will be your height, your weight, your age, your activity level. We put it all together and we come up with your resting metabolic rate, which is also referred sometimes as a basal metabolic rate. And it really is just the idea of if you put your body catatonic, this is kind of how many calories it takes to operate your functions, how to do everything, and how to move. And that's a really good idea of what your number is. And in the nutrition episode, we kind of talk about how we then create a deficit, how bariatric surgery works on that. But for today's episode, when we're talking about our resting metabolic rate, we want to talk about the benefit that building muscle and staying active has. And as you build muscle, it is actually going to increase the amount of calories that your body burns. So having more muscle on top of giving you a better looking physique, it will keep you in shape. It actually burns a little bit more calories and will give you a much better look. So one of the reasons we say staying active is important, or at least in Busy Bariatrics, is we want to be able to get your basal metabolic or resting metabolic rate as high as humanly possible so that you can eat pizza, you can have hamburgers, you can go out with your family, you can dine out. A lot of the times what I've noticed from both coaching clients and in my own personal experience is when we do not have a lot of muscle on our frames, and this was early on in my bariatric journey, I found this. When I didn't have a lot of muscle on my frame, I'm trying to think how best to word this. I essentially would have a lot more fluctuations in my weight because so much of it was based on water, body fat, and everything else. As I started to increase muscle, develop mass, and build out my physique, I found that I could eat more without having these ridiculous swings if I had a couple drinks of alcohol or if I dined out. So it had part to do with having a proper resting metabolic rate, and it also had a lot to do with the fact that as your body builds muscle, it will metabolize energy better and get everything together. So with that in mind, it's why we prescribe for our clients to build muscle onto their frames. It does allow that number to go up, as well as it allows you to be stronger and feel a whole lot better. I always try to explain it that doing cardio, yes, you can lose a lot of weight quicker with that, but a lot of times when you really look at your data on a scale, you're really just losing water because you're sweating more and hydrating. And it can cause you to lower a little bit. So it's kind of like almost when you drive for Uber or a car share service. I guess I shouldn't say Uber. They don't pay me or not pay me, but I'm rambling. This is what you're going to get in all these episodes. It's me rambling. But anywho, imagine you're doing cardio, you're doing that F45 orange burning blast boot camp level class, and you're like, oh my God, I stepped on the scale right after. I was a soaking hot mess. I lost 2 pounds. Well, if you have a little sip of water and you go back another 24 ounces, I'm going to take a sip throughout this. If you have another 24 ounces, that water is going to come right back up. So essentially, all you're doing is you're moving around water. Going weightlifting and doing resistance training and building muscle, I want you to think about investing into your 401k. Super unsexy, very boring. Nobody ever goes to the bar and is like, yo, you wouldn't believe what I'm dropping in my 403b or my 401k, or look at this sick Roth IRA that I collected. But in the long run, it's what allows us to retire and have a much better resting rate. And that's what resistance training is. It's you're building your muscle to increase your resting metabolic rate. And that in return allows you to eat more and move more. So that's kind of the reason why we go for more of a resistance approach to working out as opposed to doing more cardio. Now, cardio is still going to be very important. Cardio, especially for cardiovascular health, for moving your body, getting your respiratory levels up. There is absolutely a place for cardio. And just like we go back to that 403b or 401k, I want you to think of your relationship with movement almost looking like a whole retirement portfolio of you want it to be relatively diversified with some balance. And we'll get into what that looks like. But you essentially want to have maybe 3 to 4 days of resistance training. You can sometimes go up to 5, depending on where you are in your program and your journey. But early on, especially right after bariatric surgery, you obviously want to be cleared and okay for resistance training. But really just going 3 days a week and building the habits and foundations of getting into the gym and moving your body and resistance training is really going to build a solid foundation. Then I always say for our cardio, I really prefer telling my clients to have more of a step goal. And that allows them to really just go for walks, to maybe play with their kids, to get their movement up and slowly ramp up. So, rule of thumb of what we go for is anywhere from about 8 to 10K. So we will start a client if they're at 4,000 steps. We'll say, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I want you to get ruthlessly consistent at hitting 4,500 steps. And then we'll kind of check in on that. We'll measure it and see it. And then after we've kind of nailed and measured 4,500, we will slowly start to ramp up to about 8 to 10K and then adjust based on reason, season, weight loss, and all that good stuff. The other part that we kind of do when it comes to cardio is just finding fun movement. So that could be something as simple as if clients really like a Zumba class, if they like to play pickleball, if they want to go play tennis or golf. That's a great way to get some more cardiovascular activity in by walking with a cart, rucking, doing all that good stuff without having to put a lot of high impact on your body. And the reason that I don't really like high impact for people after bariatric surgery is if you've had bariatric surgery, chances are you were obese prior to bariatric surgery. At least that's how I was. Shocking thing, but someone will probably get upset about this. Because you are obese, you're probably putting a lot more pressure on your joints and bones than what your body normally should have. So the idea of doing burpees, jumping up and down off of boxes, really high, fast compound movements, which can do and wreak havoc on the joints, isn't necessarily going to be the best approach when it comes to how we kind of develop or do everything, especially if there's that damage. So many times when I work with clients, I'll see that they have knee replacement surgeries. They've had rotator cuff surgeries. And we do a really amazing job of how we rehab and recover and build around those injuries, but also strengthen the muscles around those joints. But so many times I will have clients that come in who are looking to lose weight, are looking to have a better physique, and they're doing burn boot class, orange theory, all that good stuff. And the problem is when you work at that higher level of moderate intensity training, which is what it is, it's not really high intensity training. Moderate intensity training is where you keep your heart rate relatively elevated for a long period of time. High intensity interval training is where you are like wind sprinting for 30 seconds, stopping for 30 seconds, wind sprinting another 30 seconds, stopping for 30 seconds. That's more high intensity training. What you're doing in your burn, boot, blast, body armor class is probably closer to moderate intensity training. I know we're like nitpicking and getting into nuances, but if you are just starting out after bariatric surgery, my best advice would be start with a step goal and really crush it and work with your surgical team to figure out what your step goal should be, how much movement you should have, discuss with them how your joints and your body moves. And then we always recommend starting with body weight exercises because that'll give you a good idea of how your body's moving in space. And then slowly work up to resistance bands, dumbbells, and then getting into the gym. A lot of times we see that people want to get started so quickly and they will be like, hey, I want to deadlift a car and I want to be able to run a marathon. I'm like, that's totally cool. But you probably at 2 months post-op need to focus on hydrating so that you don't dehydrate yourself through all this. And we'll go over all that in upcoming episodes. So anyway, you've had bariatric surgery and you want to get started, and we start you with your step goal. The reason we go to resistance bands and dumbbell training is as you are losing weight after bariatric surgery, a lot of it is going to be fat, but if you are being relatively sedentary or just doing cardio, you are going to lose a significant amount of muscle as well. So the goal with bariatric surgery, or at least how I envision how I coach my clients, is we don't necessarily want to like rapid pass down to our lowest weight. Although weight loss is going to be like our key goal and driver in our first year, we do want a more smaller and slower approach where you are losing a healthy amount of weight over time while still building muscle and doing development. And I can think of about half a dozen clients in the last year alone who came to Busy Bariatrics within like a month post-op, and we put them on their plan, and they were losing 2.5 pounds a week consistently, and their physique just changed. I can think of one client specifically who we got to about 6-7 months post-op. Her girlfriends were all running a 5K. She said, do you think we could do this? And at that point, her fluids were good, resistance training was great, and we were getting everything else together, and we're like, yeah, let's go for it. By the time she got done her 5K, and we trained for another like 2.5 months for it, she was almost completely unrecognizable in the best way possible because her body comp came in nice, her muscular development came in very well, and she had the physique that, in her words, she said she always wanted after bariatric surgery. We did not lose weight that rapidly through that program, but we built a physique that was proper, and she is now crushing it at a weight that she is so happy and thrilled to death with. That's the power of resistance training early on in your first year, is you kind of want to keep the muscle that your body has, build it, and work around it. So the other part is working out consistently has a great benefit on your mental health. And this is something that probably goes unrecognized, and I want to be really clear. You're going to have a lot of people tell you that the gym is their therapy, and that should not be the case. Your therapy should be your therapy. Your gym can absolutely be your self-care, but it should not be in the replacement of a medical professional that is helping you with your mental health. And that comes with someone who lifts 5 days a week and also sees a therapist bi-weekly. Shout out to Dr. Banford. I hope he's listening. He's probably not. I always try to get him on content, and he says it's a major HIPAA violation and that he doesn't feel comfortable. And I also tell him, like, I think this would be really cool if we shared this. And he's like, why are you recording in my office? It gets weird. But anywho. See, I always go off on these little tangents, but The idea is building some mental health around going to the gym as a coping mechanism is a really good development. So, for many of us, we may self soothe with food or alcohol, whereas when I get frustrated or overstressed, instead of eating, what I will do is I will take a lap. And I live in a community where there's a bunch of blocks. So I have like a 4 block radius, which is about half a mile. And if I'm really stressed, upset, or I'm feeling my feelings, what I will do is, depending on the feeling, I will just put my shoes on, I will go outside my door, and I will take a 4 block lap. Some days it turns to an 8 block lap, sometimes it turns into like a 4 mile lap, and I have all those loops to do. But a lot of the times I just need to do a quick reset. I do the 4 blocks and I work on my breath work. Small things like that, as opposed to turning to food or alcohol, can be a major needle mover in your bariatric journey, because now you're burning calories as opposed to taking on unnecessary and unwanted calories. And that's a way that we look at how we can build habits and get through the science of behavior change when it comes to movement. When I was obese and I was feeling upset, my answer was always, I'm either going to drink it off or I'm going to eat it off, or a little bit of both, or I'm going to get I'm going to drink a whole bunch and then I'm going to eat a whole bunch and then I'm going to go to bed. Anymore, one of the best ways that I started my behavior change was identifying that that was not serving me and that it was no longer helpful. And I slowly started to find new ways to cope. I tried journaling. I like journaling, but I never really got into it. And I think it's because so many times you see in TV shows, it's almost like this Dear Diary thing. And it took like my therapist going through like 5 different journals to be like, that doesn't have to be that way. Here's what you could do. For me, journaling looks a lot like I will just write what I need to do or how I'm feeling or what I can control and can't control on a legal pad of paper, and then I move on. That'll be a whole nother episode. But for this one, just self-soothing by making sure that I am going to the gym or I am taking an emotional walk. Another way of building habits was just making sure that I could still be present for my wife and kids. Well, my daughters, as of this recording, are 11 and 9, and they're at this awesome age, but it is a lot of carpooling, which means that I pick them up from school because my wife does the early morning drop off, and we make lunches, we get dressed, we go out to our activities. We are constantly shuttling from like 3 o'clock in the afternoon until I start client check-ins around 6, and I go till 9 recording content like this and all the other good stuff. So I don't really have the time to get my movement in consistently during the afternoon, which meant that I had to find time in the morning. And I realized the best way to do it was starting early at about 5 o'clock in the morning. So I will wake up at 4:45. I will go upstairs. I will go to the bathroom. While I'm going to the bathroom, I will check my bank account. That's a little habit I have from crushing my debt, and we'll get into a whole episode on that. And then I will hop on the scale. And I don't really care what the number says. I just treat it as a data point. I'm going to review all those data points at the end of the week and see where we're at and kind of adjust from there. Then I have my pre-workout, and I will have an apple or my fuel for the morning, and I will go out and I will lift weights. And the nice part of having this as a habit and developing the behavior change is it works twofold. One is, as I'm getting up earlier and getting my movement in, I can check that box right away so that now I'm no longer worried about, am I going to hit my movement goal or am I not going to hit my movement goal? The other part that's really good is if you get up at 4:45 in the morning, your body will be exhausted by 9 o'clock at night. And I say that in the best way possible of, it is very rare that I do not fall asleep. We will have our community calls, or I will do other podcast appearances. I will go live. All my social media, I usually do at night. And then I literally will shut the laptop off, turn the camera off, and I will be out cold. And it's nice because it gives a clear start and it gives a clear stop to the day. And that little bit of habit and behavior change is enough that it also started to develop other things in my patterns. For me, I track religiously when it comes to food. And if you've listened to last week's episode, you would have a feeling of that. But I started to look at my relationship of food and movement and realizing that there is a connection. And the biggest connection I found was when it came to alcohol. My first year post-op, I really limited the amount of drinking I did. for the first 6 months as per the doctor's orders. And then we hit the holiday season. And I found that it was around like the day after Christmas, I was doing my early morning yoga and I went to go into downward dog and I almost fell over. And I was like, that's not really normal. And I realized like I drank the night before and I was not in the right shape to do yoga at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I felt terrible. And I'm really glad that I felt terrible because then I went back and I checked my tracker and I went over and reviewed my monthly data. By the 26th, and like I don't have the data right in front of me, I probably should have gotten it, but we kind of shoot this from the hip. By the 26th, I had drank something like 19 or 20 days. I'm pretty sure it was 20 because I know it was like some weird, like I did 20 of 26 days. I had some form of alcohol. That doesn't mean like I was swinging from the chandeliers, but it could be like, oh, we're going out to dinner on a Tuesday and I'm having an extra glass of wine, or I'm meeting up with friends and I'm having an extra cocktail on a Thursday, or it's the holiday party. And again, we talk about like caloric deficits, surpluses. It's always like a death of 1,000 paper cuts. The same is true with alcohol. And it really started to add up. And when I looked at my numbers, I wasn't lifting as well as I was. I wasn't sleeping as well as I was. My performance just was really lacking. And I realized I didn't really like that. What I did for the next year is I went sober. I believe I started that day where I said, you know what, I can go the rest of it. I did my first New Year's, I want to say, in close to 20 years without alcohol. And then I continued through the next year without having a drop of alcohol. And I bring that up because that allowed me to get up earlier. It allowed me to be fresher and more present for my workouts. And even today, working out is a really good deterrent for me to keep me from having a couple glasses of wine here and there or going out and celebrating, because I know the next day I have to be up and I have to be fresh. So that really plays a big role for me. If you're struggling with this idea of how do I even get into the gym, I struggle with gym intimidation, how do I even develop all these, I'm going to now give you my top most critical piece of advice of how to get into the gym. I should probably like zoom in and get it like really close or something like that. But the one way to ensure that you get into the gym regularly after bariatric surgery is to identify as a gym goer. What does that mean? So much of the critical success you're going to have after bariatric surgery comes from how you identify yourself and how you develop your programs, patterns, and behaviors. The examples of that are very simple. Just the sheer process of saying, I'm a gym goer or I'm an early morning riser are two mantras you can start telling yourself so that when people say, hey, do you want to drink or stay out late this night? No, I'm an early morning riser and I need to get to the gym. Those small identity shifts over time are going to get you the big results that you really want and that you're going to be able to develop with. So when I have clients that come to me and they're like, I don't really like the gym, I don't really want to go to the gym. And I'm like, well, do you at least want to start getting up earlier every day? And they'll be like, yeah, that sounds great. Okay, let's work on becoming an early riser. The first way to become an early riser is we identify as an early riser. What do early risers do? Well, I'm pretty sure they don't stay up all hours of the night. Perfect. So we got to go to bed earlier. What else do early risers do? Well, they probably lay their clothes out because it's way too early to think about what they want to wear. Perfect. Let's lay our clothes out. What else do early risers do? They probably have a schedule that they like to keep so that they get everything. If you catch the drift, what we do in our one-on-one coaching is really a lot of identity shifts, and we work on developing the person who you want to be after bariatric surgery. And this powerful process allows us to help you feel confident and empowered to the fact that it might take 2 or 3 months, but then it becomes a, yes, I'm an early riser. And then we start the process again with, yes, I'm a gym rat. And we start to get ourselves into the gym. Slowly developing these processes and having healthy rewards along the way are going to allow you to eventually identify. So many people will say, Rob, it's so inspiring. How do you get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and get those workouts in? And I almost want to tell them, I wish I took more videos of this, but I wouldn't because it was always at 5 in the morning when I was getting up. I am miserable at that time. I look like a zombie. I am stumbling and tripping over myself. I am barely getting in the door. I look like a WWF wrestler towards the end of the match where they're staggering and falling all over the place. But I did it. And I cried a lot, like not physical tears, but like whined, ached, and was like, oh, it's up early again. It got cold. March, I'm just miserable because it's like, here's month 5 of it being cold and this isn't fun. But by slowly doing that and developing a reward, I would eventually find that it was normal. So some simple rewards that I would do. If I didn't miss a morning workout, I would put $10 in a piggy bank jar. And it may not seem like much, but if I had a good month, that meant I had like $40 in there. And over the year, that would give me like close to $500. And with that $500, I would do whatever I want with it. Sometimes I'd buy new gym equipment. Sometimes I would treat myself to something fancy. Maybe I'd put it towards a trip or an activity that I wanted to do. But slowly giving yourself rewards as you're redeveloping and reframing yourself that are healthy really do help get everything. So if you're listening to all of this and like, Rob, I'm completely overwhelmed. How do I start to do this? The answer, as always, is going to be start small. You do not have to be a 4:45 a.m. gym goer, and you do not have to run a marathon the first day. You really just have to start with clearing your schedule out of making some healthy movement somewhere along the way, and start by increasing your steps. Second, track your progress. If you're like, I see these people at the gym, they're bench pressing like 300 pounds and they're squatting 800 pounds, and I'm over here with my barbells, guess what? So was I. I actually started with resistance bands and even before that, yoga to help with a lot of my weight loss. So, one thing we teach our clients is just to progress your weights. So, if you have bicep curls in your program, and do the first one with nothing, with just air, and put it that I did 12 reps at 0. And it's like, okay, I could do 12 reps at 0. Now, increase your next set to 5 pounds. Okay, I got all 12 with 5 pounds. Great. Now, go for your third set and do it with 10 pounds. And you're like, wow, I can get 10 pounds in there. That's awesome. Well, now that you know that you can get 12 reps at 10 pounds, the next time you do the exercises, start at 10 pounds for that exercise and keep going up until you get to a range where it's almost difficult or you can't complete it. This is a way where I have gotten dozens of clients to go from working with little 5-pound dumbbells to eventually squatting 1.5 times their body weights. And if you're like, well, they're probably young and they don't have injuries, I can think of about 5 clients off the top of my head. And I'm thinking back because if I wanted to give names, I could give 5 right off the rip, who started with almost gym intimidation, our program of we're just going to get in and see how it goes. And we're slowly working up to the fact that now they're squatting 1.5 times their body weights for sets of 6. And these are people in their 40s and 50s who are crushing their fitness goals. They're getting their body comp. No, they do not look bulky. I'm thinking of my one specific client. I'm sure she'd be fine with sharing my name, but I want to respect that I didn't ask her before this, even though she's like, share it, it's so good. She went to a wedding and didn't have to wear shapewear last summer. And that was with lifting heavy, challenging the weights, getting a step goal. We have never had her run one single day. She gets a step goal every day by walking her dog, who is adorable, and I love him because he always shows up in our one-to-one calls. But it's just a really cool way to see that, like, you do not have to run or live on the hamster wheel in order to get amazing results. The final part is you want to make sure you're finding enjoyable activities. So for me, a lot of the times, I do not like doing cardio at all. So I have to almost sneak it in. So for me, that is something as simple as I will play pickleball so that I get my step rate up and my heart rate up. I will go for walks, which I enjoy doing, and I will call my friends and family and check in with them. And that's a small thing that I can do. I will, I'm trying to think how else I sneak it in. That's really it. I'm doing yoga again and doing hot yoga. So I'm getting my heart rate up. I'm sweating profusely through that. And again, these are small things that I enjoy to do that I incorporate regularly so that it doesn't feel like I'm doing the work. And then really just getting movement into daily life. Simple things like going for a walk with my oldest daughter. My youngest daughter wants water ice, which in the Philly region, it's kind of like iced water. It's like a Peragua. If you're from New York, or just shaved ice anywhere else. But water ice is 100 times better in Philly. There's a place that sells it that's about half a mile down the road from us, and it's an easy city block walk. So we will go out, we will do Treat Tuesday, and we will walk there and back. She will get like a gelati, which is like soft serve ice cream, water ice, more soft serve ice cream. I will get a small little sugar-free cone. And really it's a cup. They don't serve water ice in the cup, but you get the idea. Small little bit there. And there's where I'm getting like an extra 4,000 steps, crushing my goal while still getting everything else that I need. Well, I'm looking at my time and I'm also looking at this and realizing I have talked for quite a bit. The final part is if you are struggling with movement or even putting all of this together, please know that we offer amazing coaching programs that start at reasonable levels and help you scale to get to where you need to be. In our next episode, we are going to cover how to put yourself first and how to make a calendar that reflects how you're going to get your habits done, understand nutrition, and stay active while building this ecosystem that allows you to thrive after bariatric surgery. So, if you like this episode, please leave a comment on YouTube. And if you think I deserved it, leave a 5-star rating and review to be entered in our free weekly giveaway of one free product from one of our sponsors. Also, if you can hit like and subscribe, you'd be helping me out. It gets the show out, or if you even want to share it on your stories. But as always, this is me. I still don't know how to end these. So maybe you message me on Instagram and say, Rob, I wrote your closing for you. This is what we have. But as always, keep getting busy.